Hey man, it's Rick from Toontrack and Devin from Track. And Devin's been kind enough to bring us into the Metro during setup, and he's going to walk us through kind of a gear rundown, some of the stuff they're using. So the camera guy's going to follow us, and we're going to go this way.
Well, basically, we've been working for, I guess, 6 years with DTP, and we've always had a penchant for trying to figure out technological ways to do what the vision entails, but on a budget, because, you know, hey, progressive heavy metal about farting puppets is a niche market. So we've had to sort of find ways to multitask. So, you know, let's just go through everything. We'll do this in a couple of phases. Once it gets more set up, we'll show you how it all comes together. But between Dave, Mike, and myself, we've really put a lot of thought into how to make it all work. Ryan, drummer, has put a lot of thought into his rig. Brian as well with his rig. Armando here is our guitar tech, and he's put a ton of thought into this as well. So it's like a real collective sort of effort here. We just hooked up with SKB, so we've got all the guitars in these cases. These cases are sort of they're a good price point for us. They're not the waterproof ones, but they've been great. They're really, really a great company, and they've provided us with a lot of things here. And it all looks really cool. We're all in the same sort of color scheme, which is pretty hip. We made this here. Actually, Dave made this with his uncle. We've got a series of these aluminum grates that we tend to use, like when we do the Royal Albert Hall show in April, we're going to have all the grates. We've got a set of all this stuff in Europe as well, but just as an example, all this is my, I mean, I know it's super cheesy and rock and roll, but you know, hey, we're here to entertain ya. So basically, we have this stand here for me to stand on, and these LEDs that Mike St. John has MIDI'd up to his lighting system. So the whole stage interacts with Mike's rig. So the lighting, the click tracks, whatever we use for backing tracks, his keyboards, the LED walls, the lights under here, it is all sort of synced up, and we get to sort of work on this slowly as we go. It's a work in progress. So this is my ego ramp, which is pretty epic because it makes me feel much tougher than I am. Here's this guitar that has been an anomaly in people's gear world because it is such a freak. But this is this frame is Ziltoid V. I did an unboxing for this recently, and it's lasers and fog machines and the Evertune, and it's about 18 pounds. And we don't even have the fog machine in it yet. I think by the time we get all this in, it'll be about a 20-pound guitar. So being the frail human being that I am, I get to use this for 2 songs at a time before I give up in shame and put on the lighter guitars. But this case here, I mean, this whole contraption weighs about 100 pounds. So it stays down here until such time that we're ready to put it on stage. All right, so what's next here? I think this is Dave's pedal board. Both him and I use analog pedals in front of our rig. So does Beav, actually. And, you know, I really like Axe Effects and Kemper, and I use a lot of that stuff live and throughout my rig. But I love the combination of digital and analog stuff. And there's something really cool about pedals in general. I like it. They're toys. And so we have pedal boards that feed our whole rig. This one's Dave's. Beav's is this. He's running, what's he got here? Yeah, he's got the Sans amp, diamond compressor, Dunlop volume, and a tuner. That's him into his Ampeg rig. This is mine. This is a work in progress still. I've been working on this thing for a while, and Armando last night just sort of temporarily wired it up so we can try out a couple of pedals. I'm still sort of trying to figure out the best way to make it all work. But this one control thing here, which we just picked up, is essentially a looper. It's got 10 loops that you can select in one of 2 modes. But essentially you can have a channel switching on my Mesa and my Axe simultaneously, and then incorporate certain things. So, for example, my clean channel, I've got these 3 elements that are on the clean channel that when I hit clean, it engages a loop that puts those all in, and then I can sort of take this one in and out, whether or not I want gain. This whammy is engaged when I have the lead channel. My main channels have a loop that includes the Spark Booster currently and the Mesa Overdrive, which acts as a clean boost. And then the effects loop of the amp, I've got a volume pedal so I can independently control the dry volume while keeping my GP sound going, and an additional echo for solos. This pedal board junction box is really cool because we're going to have this all set up where you can run the in and out of the effects loop and the in and out of the pedal board with these two boxes. So as opposed to having to sort of like go in there and fiddle around during a show, you just plug directly into that. Decimator is an awesome noise gate. And this is, you know, I went back and we made this right before we left. Basically, this is where I put my mic stand. We've got a mic stand that modularly goes into this thing, and so it just keeps it all relatively organized for live. And this is just a tuner, which I use for a mute because I've got all the Evertune stuff on the guitars, and so I don't typically have to check the tuning, but it acts as a mute in case something goes down. Like the fog machine makes a big hissing noise, which it just might. We'll find out tonight. Okay, so let's go over here. We'll see if we can say that, Alex.
Join us.
Flip this around. Okay. Sorry, Alex. Sorry, dude. Is it cool if we're here? Okay. We'll just flip this around here, guys. Come on in. Okay, so this is my rig for the amp. When I put this together, I was pretty stoked. I like doing this sort of stuff. I like building things and then consequently having to rebuild them because I did it wrong, which I've done already. So this is the amp that I use, dual rectifier. It's a multi-watt. It's a new one. 3 channels. The channel switching happens from the one control with these amp gizmos, which is a proprietary cable that goes into the Mesa foot switch. So you can run MIDI into this, and then simultaneously you can switch your channels and your Axe Effects channels. I have another one of these simply as a backup in case this one goes down, which I've not had problems with, but you never know when this is going to happen. We've got a backup dual rectifier on tour as well for Dave and I. And then basically it runs into this wireless rig first. We've got 5 packs on the 4 guitars, one as a backup, and then Armando switches between A and B when he hands me a guitar, and then the A and B individually go into here, then into a switcher, and then the output here goes to the Mesa and the Axe Effect. Cool thing about this radial is you can it's got an independent ground lift, it's got a phase reverse, and you can engage an effects loop, which allows you to run that pedal board in series without having to run additional cables. We've got a loom of cables, but again, it's all a work in progress, right? In the back here of this guy, oh, there's my hat stuck. Screw you, hat. Okay, check this out back here, guys. All right. So basically, it's not powered up here, so we don't have the. Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, so we've got this all labeled down here. Here's my effects send and return for the Mesa that goes into that volume pedal and the delay that I showed you earlier. Here's the backup in case that RGM goes down. You simply take that one out, replace it with this, plug this one in, and replace that cable with this cable, right? Axe Effects goes to 2 things. My GP sound goes to the Mackey's powered wedges that get my on-stage GP sound. Front of house goes direct there. The out of the radial here, see I made these little runways because I'm super OCD. This input, or this output goes to the dual rectifier. This one goes to the Axe Effects. And then I've got the Mesa hardwired into this, which is my in-ear and front of house sound. It's a cab simulator, so it essentially gives me the same idea as if you were going into a digital piece of gear into your ears. It's just a really cool direct sound. And then the other output goes to my on-stage cabinet, and that's it. That's my rig.
What's the cabinet?
It's a Mesa oversized recto cab. Now, I think that's Beeve's rig over there. It's not undone yet, but it's SVT4 with a 15 and then a 410. And then here's his guitars. Beeve is using Spectre, and they're just killer basses. It's just like a great fundamental. I think there are EMGs in there as well, but the preamp is it's basically the waveform just looks like a brick. There's a kind of lack of dynamic range to this type of music that it's nice to keep consistent. So between that compressor he's using and those basses, great sound.
So Dev, tell us about these screens that your gear is set up behind. What's this all about?
Well, this is Mike's world again. So essentially Mike is setting up his rig now because for a long time we had everything on tape. And the way that I write and layer music, I like it to be orchestrated. I like sort of that orchestral vibe. And again, going back to the limited resources of the genre that we've picked, having choirs and orchestras and background singers is not an option. So we had it on tape, but then all of a sudden we wanted to sort of incorporate much more of the sort of human element to it. So Mike plays a lot of that stuff. We still have some of the vocals and everything that are running on tape, but essentially he runs a laptop, not this one. This one's for his keyboard rig in which he runs, I guess it's Ableton is your main one, right? But we've got another laptop in that system back there that controls via MIDI and what else? Is it MIDI that controls VDMX as well?
Yeah, it's all MIDI over Ethernet, internal MIDI, DMX over ArtNet.
Yeah.
Fun things, but it actually all comes down to MIDI, which is great because it's pretty musical, right?
Yeah. So essentially, he takes this rig backstage or onto the bus, and then continues programming the light show. So he sends a click track to this Crest board here, which we got from Peavy, which is really nice of him. Thanks, Chris. And that has a split in it. So we've got all the looms that come from the drum mics, guitar mics, vocal mics, and everything like this that goes into the back of that Crest, and then that splits in two ways. One of them goes to all our in-ear monitors here, in which Dave, hi Dave, hey, Dave and Armando and ourselves, we have all of those as our wireless packs that we hear, the click tracks and everything, and we can adjust that. But that click also sends to Ryan's rig back there, and that also sends to all the lighting and visual stuff that Mike has been in control of. And these are unfortunately not ours because they cost immense amounts of money. But we rent these Pixel. What are they called? Pixel Flex. Yeah, and they're essentially, you see that, they're like a sleeping bag full of LEDs. And Rick's getting text, and it says it is not like an LED. But but that's it. So basically, Mike and Dave and I attempted to get into on the first tours. I had made a lot of the videos, and you can really tell because they were bougé. But Mike and Dave got together, and specifically Mike made all the videos that go along with the click track, with the lighting cues and everything else, right? And so that's how these work. It's a hell of a procedure, and it's been just a lot of thinking for Mike and Dave and specifically Mike here. So here's those two Mackie wedges I was talking about with my rig. So to run the GP sound, to run my affected sound, I like having that on stage. That sort of echoey trip has been a big part of my sound since the very beginning, so I like being really present with that.
So your clean sound is stereo, yeah?
Yeah, everything's stereo. Actually, I've got it set up so the recto cab, which is a mono signal, goes direct to the board, and then it's 3 signals, right? So I've got the stereo effects. Basically what I do is I take the clean channel or the heavy channel, and I model the same sound that I'm using. So in this case, I've got the rectifier. So I'll model a rectifier in the Axe effects, but I'll make the effects basically at 100%. So I can affect the front end of the effect or of the modeled amp with the pedal board, similarly to how I affect the front end of the actual amp, and then the effects come out independent. And for me, I like that element of layering. Even when I record, it's that procedure. You have a dry signal, and then you have a similarly voiced affected signal. I do that with orchestral stuff or vocal stuff. Same sort of procedure. So these wedges actually work really well for us, and they've got a blue light, which is rather epic. Ryan's kit. Ryan's working with Pearl, has since the beginning. He's running a rack, and I think he's got Evan's heads. He could explain that better than I can because I have one-way independence as a drummer, which is, terrible. And then he's running in the back there for his in-ears. He's got a Rain line mixer. Dave just farted back there. Yeah, he just farted. It's terrible. Yeah. How is it?
It's fantastic.
Good. Is it? Okay, Dave has not pooped, and he has just farted. Dave's farts are... Oh, it's leaching over. Yeah, they're brutal, man.
But this is the major leagues, kids. This is not for those of you that are weekend warriors. This is how the real music world works. There's farts involved. It just happens.
Dave Price has been with us for a while, and Dave and I have known each other for 15 some odd years. And even then, even then, in our younger, healthier years, Dave's farts were legendary.
I am going to go on record as saying it totally just crossed over the drum set. It's here now.
Yeah, it's
We're in it.
it's a slow-moving one too because it's a thickness to Dave's flatulence.
It's like that scene in John Carpenter's The Fog. When the fog rolls in, you know it's there. Yeah, I'm just waiting for pirates and screwdrivers and stuff now. So
Our favorite story with Dave is a venue in, I think it was Copenhagen, where I think there was the one woman that showed up at the show was hanging backstage, and a bunch of men were individually Planet of the Apesing around her, like, "Oh, you're so interesting." And Dave came back, being the in a relationship type cat that he is. And you see that there's a certain liberation to that, where you're just like, "Hey, look, I'm not trying to score here, so here's my farts." And Dave nuked the backstage in such a way that it was like spores that were growing other farts on everything it touched. Hideous.
I was ill.
Yeah.
I was ill.
You've been ill.
I was ill.
You've been ill then, if that's the criteria, for quite some time, my friend. Because last night you cut one too that was like, no, it wasn't last night. It was 2 days ago. Yeah. Dave he works with Gojira, and you do a lot of people, and they are all well versed in his flatulent ways.
Just at this point, hello Nina. How are you?
That's his girl, Nina. Yeah, right. Yeah.
You must be very proud right now.
this one's for you, Nina.
So yeah, that's Dave. He works around Ryan's rig and cuts farts, which is great. And then he's got a rain mixer back there. He uses a 2-box for a trigger. We actually don't use the triggers for our main front of house sound. We use it in case the mics go down. We did for a while, but it's hard to make those work. And the whole thing is a work in progress. We're trying to refine the sounds, and Paul Collis, who does the tour managing, is also a front of house sound engineer. And it's really difficult to mix this stuff. I mean, that's really the bottom line. I haven't mixed all this stuff myself. It's a pain in the ass.
So you talk about
He's got the LED walls
turn around.
started.
LED walls.
Yeah,
We're looking that way.
Wicked, yeah.
So you talked about the fact that you guys are doing some pretty epic things on a smaller budget.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how long did it take for all of you guys to sit down and put this sort of system together, where you've got the lights and the keyboards and everything sort of working together? How long of a process is that for you?
Well, the process is divided in certain ways. For example, we'll get together as a band between me, Mike, Dave, Ryan, and Beeve, and we'll discuss what the objectives are. So we're doing the Royal Albert Hall in April, and for that we get a slightly larger budget, and we get to do certain things for that are independent of this. But the idea is to sort of work out the kinks of that with our live rig. For example, we made this backdrop that is just sort of a blank canvas for Ziltoid ship, that when we can incorporate the festivals next year and the Royal Albert thing, we can add more things to it, right? Then after we have an initial sort of powwow between the band, it typically breaks off with Mike and Dave doing a lot of the think tanking of how they're going, because they do the teching as well. They sort of multitask as well as being the live performers. They also do teching work as well, and so it's important for them to have a clear understanding of how the rig goes, so they can be in charge of that and have it clearly understood between the people that they're delegating other things to. And then a lot of the sort of the creative, the genesis of the creative vision is usually myself, where I'll say, well, this is what's going on. We're going to have a bunch of farting aliens. How do we do that? And then, maybe we'll sit between Dave and Mike and myself, and then we'll sort of delegate tasks as what needs to be done, and then they'll go off and take care of certain elements of it. But it's a real kind of cool collective that we got going, and I think that what makes DTP work is the hierarchy of it is, even though I get to be the figurehead for it, yay, it's a combination of everybody. Like, everybody has really specific jobs that make this whole thing work, and it's a work in progress. It's a lot of fun. We're not coming at this like this is a defined vision of what we are. Like a lot of bands, you see the Opeths or Meshuggahs of the world, and they've been Opeth and Meshuggah since the very beginning. They've got a real clear objective. And I think a lot of what makes this interesting for me is that it evolves and it changes, and we refine things. And I think, not being afraid to fail really has been a lot of what makes this, for me, really engaging, because you're just like, well, it didn't quite work. Let's try something else. And then that sort of trial and error of it all leads to solutions and creative ideas that you just wouldn't get if it was this is it from the beginning. It's, and so it changes, and the whole team really has an immense amount to do with how good it ends up being.
Well, and part of this, I would think, too, for you is it has to be scalable as you're going to be out on the road for quite a while and in different venues, as you said, festivals in the summer and Europe after the first of the year. So will you end up taking this entire sort of production or rig with you? I know you had mentioned you had some other gear in Europe already. Kind of, you know, your backline in Europe is kind of solidified already.
Certainly, I think a lot of what Dave and Mike had done on this run as well was try to be aware of weight restrictions. You know, because for me, I mean, I'm such a glutton, man. I'm like, I want a rack. I want to put a head in a rack, and I want a 16 space, and I want a guitar that weighs 300 pounds, and blah, 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 blah. But the reality is you can only put 23 kilograms per case on a flight. And if you're blowing as many farts, no, I mean, if you're blowing as much money as we tend to do on the R&D and the bus and all these sorts of things, you can't spend 10 grand every time you fly, or else it's you know, eventually. I mean, we're all running on sort of a shoestring budget as it is, and it would be nice at the end to, you know, see some sort of profit eventually, right? So we've tried to put this rig into a 23 kilogram maximum for each one of those cases. And anything that's over than that, we might rent with a backline, like in Europe or whatever, and like we can get the heads from Mesa or Ampeg as a backline rental elsewhere. But yeah, the idea is to keep it all modular. In this case, we've got it all zap strapped together here so we can move it as one. But it's all with that sort of modular idea in mind. And again, you know, it's a work in progress, and we'll see what happens.
So your European fans can definitely look forward to seeing all of this production and all of this kind of epic showmanship as well when you're there after the first of the year.
Hopefully even more so, because we decided when we started doing this run, because it's been a while since we've done a North American run, and we didn't want to saturate our workload. Like, we've got new songs, we've got new visuals, we've got pixel flex walls, we've got all new gear, we've got all new lighting thing, we've got a new person on stage. I mean, it's a lot of trial and error that goes into making that work. So we didn't want to, for example, include a back wall of visuals yet. We just have something that sort of sets it up. We didn't want to include all the aluminum grates in the front there yet, because we want to make sure that we've got a show at least straight out of the gate, and then we'll add to it as it goes, right? But it's honestly, man, it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's like, I really like the technical aspects of music. I really like gear. I really like sort of farting around with things and seeing if it will work. And I mean, a lot of what is really cool as well is between, you know, like specifically between Mike and Dave and myself, there's a lot of sort of happy accidents that happen as a result of this. But, you know, Mike's rig here, because me, Dave, Beeve, and Ryan try and throw rock moves 1 through 43 while we're playing. But Mike, his whole rig here, he ends up sort of, if Mike decides one day that, you know, that we're all dicks and that Dave's farts are too much, he just has to shut the laptop, and, you know, I just have to go into a dubious comedy routine for the rest of the night, right? So
That's actually pretty cool.
yeah, it's a trump card that I'm hoping we don't have to have pulled on us for being, you know, as douchey as we can be. So that's our rig, guys, and we'll be back later as we start getting towards sound check to sort of show you how it comes together in terms of practical application.
You heard this breaking news and amazing gear description directly from Toontrack Metal TV, broadcasting live today from the Devin Townsend Project Animals as Leaders and Monuments Tour here at the Metro in Chicago, Illinois.